On the morning of June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history began along the shores of Normandy, France. The sun had barely risen when thousands of American soldiers, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resolve, stormed the beaches under relentless German fire. From Omaha to Utah, the men of the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions carried with them the weight of a nation and the hope of liberation for Europe. The German defenders, entrenched in the Atlantic Wall, had spent years preparing for this moment. Concrete bunkers, minefields, and machine gun nests created a deadly mosaic designed to repel any invasion. Yet, the Americans pressed forward, wave after wave, often paying with their lives. The beaches ran red, but slowly, inexorably, the foothold was established. Behind the front lines, American paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions had already been dropped deep into enemy territory. Their mission, secure bridges, disrupt communications, and sow chaos behind German lines. Night had cloaked their descent in darkness, but it had not diminished their resolve. Lieutenant Colonel James Gavin led his paratroopers with precision, striking key positions and cutting off German reinforcements. The success of D-Day was never guaranteed. The Allies had faced uncertainty at every step. The treacherous tides, unpredictable weather, and an enemy who would not surrender easily. Yet the combination of meticulous planning, overwhelming firepower, and extraordinary courage allowed the Americans to push inland. By the end of June, tens of thousands of soldiers had fought their way off the beaches and into the Norman countryside, establishing the crucial first foothold in Western Europe. The beaches were only the beginning. The hedgerows of Normandy presented a new challenge. Thick, ancient walls of earth and shrubs created a maze of defensive positions where German soldiers could ambush advancing Americans at every turn. Combat slowed to a crawl. Tanks struggled to maneuver. Infantrymen were exposed to sudden bursts of machine gun and artillery fire from every direction. General Omar Bradley's 1st Army and General George Patton's 3rd Army spearheaded the push. Bradley carefully orchestrated logistics and reinforcements, ensuring that supplies, ammunition, and fuel reached the front lines. Patton, famed for his audacity and speed, maneuvered his tanks in a rapid, almost reckless advance, forcing German forces to react and stretching their defenses thin. The Americans began to leverage combined arms tactics. Infantry moved in concert with artillery and armor. Air support provided by the 9th Air Force bombed German positions, cutting supply lines and fortifications. Each village, each crossroads became a battlefield. Casualties were high, but determination never wavered. Slowly, the Allies carved a path through the hedgerows, eventually reaching key towns, such as Carentan and St. Lo, opening the road for the push toward Paris. By August 1944, the momentum was undeniable. After weeks of grueling combat in Normandy, the Allies broke through German lines. The city of Paris, still under German occupation, became the symbolic prize of liberation. American forces advancing from the west and south converged with French resistance fighters, already stirring revolt within the city. General Charles de Gaulle's Free French forces coordinated with American units, seizing key bridges, government buildings, and communication hubs. German forces, faced with overwhelming opposition and fearing destruction of the city, retreated. The streets of Paris, once tense with occupation, erupted in celebration as American and French forces marched triumphantly through the avenues, flags waving, and citizens cheering their liberators. The liberation of Paris was not only a military victory, it was a moral triumph. It symbolized the tangible progress of the Allies in reclaiming Europe, and demonstrated the effectiveness of American strategy and resilience. Winter 1944 brought one of the most severe tests for American forces, the Battle of the Bulge. On December 16th, German forces launched a surprise counterattack through the dense Ardennes forest, aiming to split the Allied lines and capture the strategic port of Antwerp. American units, many exhausted and undersupplied, faced the brunt of this assault. The terrain favored the Germans initially. Narrow roads and snow-laden forests slowed American movement. Tanks became bogged down, and communication lines faltered under the harsh winter conditions. German infantry infiltrated weak points, causing panic and confusion among some units. Yet, American resolve, combined with rapid reinforcement and strategic decision-making, gradually turned the tide. General Anthony McAuliffe, acting commander of the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, famously replied nuts when offered surrender. The American defense held firm, buying critical time for reinforcements. Artillery, combined with fighter-bomber support from the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang, decimated German armor and disrupted their supply chains. By late January 1945, the German offensive had been repelled. The Battle of the Bulge had cost the Americans over 19,000 soldiers, killed, wounded, or missing. But it shattered the German army's last significant offensive capability on the Western Front. The final phase of the American campaign in Germany began with the push toward the Rhine River in early 1945. American forces faced well-entrenched German defensive positions along the Siegfried Line. Heavy fortifications, bunkers, and anti-tank obstacles made frontal assaults costly and dangerous. Engineers and infantry coordinated to breach these defenses, clearing minefields and establishing crossings under artillery and small arms fire. The 9th and 1st Armies executed simultaneous attacks, stretching German resources and overwhelming their command structure. By March, the Americans had crossed the Rhine at several key points, signaling the impending collapse of German resistance. The crossing was more than a military maneuver. It represented the symbolic invasion of Germany itself. American forces, battle-hardened and well-coordinated, advanced with relentless precision, exploiting the weakening German defense lines. Cities like Cologne and Dusseldorf fell with increasing speed as the Allies pressed into the heart of the Reich. April 1945 brought the final chapters of the war. American forces, now moving in concert with Soviet advances from the east, liberated concentration camps and liberated countless civilians from the grip of Nazi oppression. The horrors of the Holocaust became undeniable, adding a moral imperative to the military victory. By mid-April, American troops had reached the Elbe River, meeting Soviet forces from the east. German resistance had crumbled, leadership was in disarray, and morale was non-existent. On May 7, 1945, Germany officially surrendered, ending the war in Europe. The American campaign from Normandy to the Rhine had demonstrated the effectiveness of combined arms strategy, industrial capacity, and tactical innovation. From the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Germany, the United States had fought a sustained and decisive campaign that altered the course of history.